All right, welcome everyone. Good evening to the third day of the 12 days of Christmas. Well, we lost a day, but now it's actually like day one. We actually had to backtrack a little bit. So I certainly will start off the top of the program saying that while I posted, we are sorry that our originally scheduled program has been changed. And unfortunately, while we were supposed to be with Kevin and Ray from Needles at the Ready podcast, they have been stricken with much of what everyone else has been as well. So I am feeling for them because, of course, if you don't know, I did have to cancel the very first night of the 12 days of Christmas. But everything happens as it should. And so I gave a shout back out to Lisa and I said, look what happened. Unfortunately, these guys are not well, and I knew she was still available. Owen gets another night at the movies, so
Right.
everybody is good. So we are excited that our first day of the 12 days of Christmas is actually happening now. And
Yep.
I am hopeful that we'll be able to find a way to get Kevin and Ray in somewhere towards the end if they're feeling better. And if not, we'll definitely table them for next year's programming because I don't know about you guys, but I really don't see any reason why I wouldn't continue this programming. Everyone seems to be loving it and I love it. So I want to say thank you again for your patience with the changes that we have to make. And I hope everybody else is well because a lot of people have been sick, unfortunately. So I hope you're tucked in at home, cozy, perhaps have knitting by your side or whatever fiber crafts you enjoy, and enjoy tonight's programming. Now, a couple of things we always start off. I hope by now that people are getting the gist of what the 12 Days of Christmas is all about. But if you do not know, you can certainly go back and watch episode 1 and 2 on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow me, subscribe. There's not much there, but you got to give me a little incentive perhaps to kind of keep it rolling, although I think I said that last year. So either way, there's always a day in which other things might go up there. So the 12 Days of Christmas for me is just really an opportunity to create community and really feel a sense of joy myself for the holidays. As I've expressed being involved in retail, having the farm, I'm constantly feeling the pressure as the holidays approach, more so for taking care of everybody else and just feeling that pressure of retail and just not the sense of the holiday spirit that I was looking for. And last year, I thought, I'm not going to do this, but how can I add to perhaps a little levity to everybody else's stress as well? Not to mention, we also get to Christmas and like, what the hell do we do now? So, as we're anxiously awaiting bringing in the new year, and also again, for so many people that whether they are alone by proxy or by choice, it doesn't matter. If you've got a small family like myself, this is family, and I'm really happy to be coming into your homes and being able to spend some time with you. And most importantly, my intention is to bring people to the forefront so that you have a chance to know yet somebody else in our fiber community. And I'm blessed to have so many cool people surrounding me in so many different facets of the industry. So I've purposely created a lineup that, of course, interjects the expected, the designers, the dyers, although this is a little bit off the beaten path, which is fun too. Everybody has their own twist to what it is that they do, but then also finding people kind of like on the outskirts of the industry as well. So you'll just have to continue to stay tuned and hear a lot more about people that we've got lined up for the rest of the time. So with that, I want to kind of jump right into some of the stuff that I'll make sure I repeat at the ends because we do want to make sure that you guys know that there are some fun things lined up for you as well. So please know that you have to hang into the end of the program, and Lord knows we never know when that's going to be. Our first one was about an hour and a half. The second one almost ran about 2 hours. So we'll see where tonight goes. And with that, at the end of the session, I'm going to ask Lisa to pick a number, and based on on how many people are still participating with us, somebody's going to be chosen at random to get a $20 store credit with Life. Now, I do want to also specify that that's going to become active after the 12 days of Christmas. And don't think that's a bad thing, because if you're shopping with us, you actually want to be able to maybe spend a little bit more to get more tickets in for that raffle basket that we have for you. And if you choose to use store credits or coupon codes, the $10 per ticket will be taken out after all of those are already used. So that's why your $20 store credit is great. Wait and leave it till later when you can treat yourself to something special after the fact. So that is going to say that there's a raffle basket at the end of these 12 days of Christmas, and it's super fun. We actually, oh, you have yours tonight. Okay. So we actually have a collection of different things from our speakers, as well as some things that we will throw in as well. And each night we'll kind of continue to show you what's getting piled into that raffle basket. And it is just meant to be fun, and also kind of like a keepsake of what the 12 days of Christmas was this year, and all of the guests that brought really fun and informational things to us during these 12 days. Now, also, I've got a coupon code for you that is TDOC23, and that is going to get you 10% off your shopping. And that's going to be until Friday evening, because then, of course, I need to be able to tally everything up for the raffle basket, which will be drawn at the wrap up party on the 6th. So keep that in mind. You're free to use that, of course. You can be strategic and not use it if you like. There are some exclusions to that, and I'm sure when you shop, you'll figure that out as well. So now I think we'll get talking a little bit more. I'm going to repeat all of that, and then that's when Lisa will share the goodies that she has for us also, as well as she's going to share what she is donating. I don't even know what she's going to be donating to the raffle basket. So that's our homework, just kind of put aside so that you guys can keep that in mind. Just bringing you a little bit of holiday cheer from myself to all of you. And I hope it's something that you'll look forward to. And that wrap up party. Now, you don't have to be there to win the raffle basket, but keep in mind that for the wrap up party on Saturday, we're also going to have trivia questions. So kind of as we roll through each of the guests that we had, chat a little about it. This is really going to be a very interactive time for us. So you guys definitely better raise your hands, have questions, have comments. And so for each guest, I have to come up with a trivia question. Maybe some are hard, maybe some will be easy. And basically the first one to get the answer in the chat will win a little prize, and those will be mailed to you. So you have to be there to get those prizes, but you do not have to be present for the raffle basket. But I hope you'll join us anyway for the wrap-up party. So with that, and without further ado, now I'd definitely be curious to see in the chat, many of you have been participating in this year-long collaboration that Lisa and I have come up with, called Life on Long Island. We'll certainly be talking about that at some point. And Lisa has done some programming with me before as a result of that. But of course, we're going to delve into things a lot farther with Lisa and who she is as a person, as well as her journey in knitting and dyeing. But drop in the chat, if Lisa's new to you, if you haven't really maybe learned a little or anything about natural dyeing. It's just always good to hear, what is new to you and what you're getting out of this. So don't hesitate to kind of let us know as we move along. So Lisa, thank you so much for being so flexible and jumping in literally at a moment's notice in order to be able to make sure that we can keep our programming rolling. So I'm going to turn it over to you, as I do for every guest, before we kind of roll off in a million different directions. I'm going to give you the floor, and maybe in about 2 minutes or whatever you feel comfortable. If somebody was to say, who's Lisa Westervelt, what is Stop, Drop, or Knit, how would you describe yourself? How do you want to introduce yourself to the community?
I'm just me. I don't know. That's such a hard question. I mean, most of my life, I've identified as a flutist because that's been my profession. And if you go into music, long before it's your profession, it's your hobby, right? So knitting actually came along as my hobby when I was in graduate school, because I just needed something to do other than practice a gazillion hours a day, right? Um, and yeah, now it's, knitting was kind of a thing here and there for a little bit, but I just kind of did it in the background. Then it probably became a little bit more prominent when I was having Owen. I knit, just a couple little blankets and things, nothing too much. I still wasn't like a capital knitter yet at that point, I think. And he's 9 years old now. So all of my degrees are in flute performance. I actually have degrees from like the most amazing music schools in the country, and I've studied with like the world's best flutists. So my flute education has been like really the thing that has been the focus of my life. And I think at the point where I was applying for a long time for jobs in higher education to be a flute professor myself. And I had so many really, really close calls, getting into the finals, being runner up for like my dream job, essentially. And every time it wouldn't work out. And things would just kind of come crashing down in that sense. And that's a really hard fall when like there's only a handful of jobs open, if even that, every year. And so there was, I think back in 2018, there was one such job that I really thought it was going to be mine, and then it wasn't. And then I just kind of fell into like probably an actual real depression episode about it. And that's when knitting really took over everything for me. And that was just my therapy was just knitting and just diving into that. I couldn't think about music for a little while. I was still teaching and doing all of this stuff. I know this is kind of depressing, right? It's
Oh, no,
not meant
it's
to be.
not. It's not
Yeah.
at all. I mean, honestly, I was just thinking, and I wasn't going to interrupt you. I mean, it's just being vulnerable, and it's sharing. And how many times do we see articles about how knitting helps people in so many various forms? So I don't think you should look at it that way at all. I think it's real, and I think that's what's great about it, and that's why we do these things. So
Yeah.
continue
So
before I tear it apart in a million different directions.
yeah, so I mean, that's, knitting was what really helped me through that really dark time and helped me, get back up off my feet. Every time something really bad happens, I threaten to melt the flute in fire or something. I'm like, and I would never do that, but it's like, like, why? And I think, it's easier to face a disappointment when you're not so close to it becoming your new reality than it is when it's like right there, like you can taste it, like you've been on campus interviewing and already teaching some of these students, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out. So the closer you get to your dream, the harder it is to face that disappointment. So that's when knitting like really took its hold. And then um with the dying, that kind of happened mostly during the pandemic, actually.
I was gonna say, now let's
So
hold that.
we have the
Yeah,
yeah.
let's hold that, because I'm gonna backtrack like a
Yeah.
million and one
We have to, yeah, because we have to meet first, right?
steps. Yeah, I'm already like, okay, what about this? And what about
I
this?
know.
Because we've never, I mean, as much as we've known each other for 10 years now, and working together, let's say probably since we came up with this whole crazy idea, maybe about 6 months. I mean, like,
End of the summer,
yeah,
August. Yeah.
somewhere around there. So I don't think though, and that this is why I was most excited. I knew that you were a flutist. I knew that that was your background. I know that Bryce is involved in it, your husband, and it's been so adorable, if that's an okay word to say, to see Owen, getting involved in it as well. So obviously it's genetic, but I'm just really curious because I think it's one of those things. I feel like maybe I'm wrong. I mean, much in the way in somebody's like, I want to be an actress, like for somebody to say that they want to do music as a profession can't necessarily be the easiest path, as maybe perhaps your describing in terms of job opportunities, or maybe it was just the specific job you were looking for. So I'm just curious, everybody has an opportunity to get involved with instruments, when they're
Right.
younger. We were just talking about it because I think in back in my day, sort of our day, it was like third grade. I think you could do string, and then you had to wait until fourth grade if you wanted to do an instrument. And, you know, maybe you stuck with it. I mean, I think I carried mine through high school, and
What
then
did you play?
I was the clarinet.
Oh.
Ah, but and I don't know if you were at least just even prodding that, or if you remember our
No,
conversation.
I didn't remember.
Oh, okay. No, no, that's great because you and I were just talking the other day because Owen has just started playing the
Oboe.
oboe. And I had asked you, and you said because he wanted to play the clarinet, but you wouldn't let him. And not in any bad way, but say why, because I thought it was hysterical.
Well, I mean, SpongeBob, first of all. Like if you've got to be really good for it not to be painful, right? No, also just I've got perfect pitch. So when I look at music and hear music, I hear it as like treble clef and on flute and violin and piano pitch. Clarinet is a step and a half off from that, or a step off something. It would really bug me, like to be looking and hearing something that was just different. But also he's just really talented. He's got a great ear from all the singing, and oboe is a little bit more difficult. It's not necessarily that it's more difficult, it's less typical to start on it as a young kid. And just between his fast fingers from his video games and his singing and his good ear, he just was going to be a natural at the oboe, and he's pretty much proving that true. He never practices, but he's 9. I'm not pushing him right now, but you know
Well, and it
it's
was, that's why when we had the conversation, plus I feel like when you were young and then choosing if you wanted to do an instrument, it was always like, the flutes, against the clarinets,
I wanted to play clarinet too. And my dad had a clarinet and my mom had a flute. And I was so tiny, I couldn't cover all the keys for the clarinet. So I got stuck with the flute. I hated it so much. Oh my goodness. I had played violin though from when I was 3. But my mom was just like, nope, I have a flute. You're going to play the flute. And I
So
hated
the
it. Like,
music came from your
my
parents. So
mom.
both your parents were involved in music as well.
Yeah, my dad only through high school. He went into software engineer, but my mom teaches music and still plays like in community groups and stuff.
So I mean,
So
maybe that answers the question, but like I'm saying, you starting grade school, you're playing, maybe many kids will take it through, junior high, then some more will take it through high school, but I feel like very few carry it on from there. So what was it for you that you sought this out as your career and that you actually went to school for it? Where is that deciding factor that you want to do music as a career, which, like I said, I could be wrong, but that doesn't sound like an easy career.
it's not. And I actually started as a double major in performance and music education. I did not want to do music education because I really work best one on one with people. And I'm a little bit better now, but I had severe anxiety. And the idea of getting up in front of like a whole group of people and teaching and talking was just not for me. I prefer like an intimate setting with just a couple of people. And so, but my dad was like, no, 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 you've got to have something employable, right? So I did it for a year, and then it was like, this just is not for me. So I dropped the music ed and I went just full on performance, and I never looked back. I think the decision to go that route initially in high school was not having anything else that I was as passionate about, not feeling the pull towards anything different. And knowing that I was good at it, knowing that I would dedicate myself to, the kind of hard work and ethic that you need to have to pursue that kind of career. And then, yeah, I went off to grad school. Bryce and I actually met when we were in Florida. I lived there for about 7 years. I was playing in Orlando Philharmonic and subbing with the Florida Orchestra and subbing with like other local orchestras in Florida for like a good 7 years. And then I moved back to Long Island to get my doctorate at Stony Brook. And at that point, I wanted to focus on teaching because in Florida, I had had a little adjunct position. And that was when I really fell in love with college teaching.
So I have to
So,
interrupt only because I feel like more than anything else, as of, so far, people that we've chatted with and things like that. I don't know if you have your comments open, but really there's so many people chiming in that, have music, in their life, or at least just relating to what you're talking about. Carol is saying that her husband is a professional musician. Somebody else, I think, mentioned somewhere that they met their husband in the high school band. So it's just interesting. I mean, honestly, right now, I feel like there's more going on in the chat than we've seen thus far. And not that I'm saying I'm surprised, but, I feel like, again, it's something that so many people can connect to in terms of, being involved in it, one way or another. But I think it's pretty cool just to see how many people can relate to what you're talking about and what you do. And, I'm sure that while the path wasn't easy, now, why was it so difficult, or why is it so difficult to get the job, let's say, that you were looking for? Was it because it was a specific job, or is it just because there's just not that many jobs? Like every school just needs one music teacher, or is that it? Or
exactly. I mean, to get a position as assistant professor of flute at a college that has an actual music school, there are actually so many of us that are good enough and qualified for that position. And you're lucky if 5 positions open up in a year. So everybody then flocks to those positions if you're trying to get a professorship in higher education. The same with orchestral jobs. When somebody retires from an orchestra and there's an opening, that only happens a couple of times a year. And so everybody shows up. And, in an audition situation, part of it is, are you going to have a good day or a bad day in those like 2 minutes that you get to show off your stuff, right? That's a good part of it, but it's not everything. It's just the market is actually really oversaturated with extremely talented people. And, as far as, we all want to support each other, but we're all friends and colleagues, but at the same time, everybody's competition for you too. And that gets really tiring too, to, manage that aspect of, just colleagues and everything. Like you're friends with people, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I really need this job too. And it's just difficult.
I would imagine it's a pretty small knit, no pun intended, but
Yeah.
a small knit community in that sense.
Yeah.
So what do you do now? Where do
Well,
you?
I teach at it's an interesting situation, but there is a small Korean school in Huntington, and it's kind of affiliated with a church, but we're working towards becoming degree granting right now. So they're college age kids and they come over from Korea. And I've been teaching there as adjunct since 2017. So I've been teaching the flute students, and for the past 2 years, I've kind of taken on a more administrative role as well, kind of heading the whole orchestral instruments department. And it's a very small school. So, I mean, it sounds like a big thing, but it's really maybe 30 or 40 kids and just kind of taking more administrative stuff.
And
So,
now I know Bryce is involved. So just quickly, because I don't even think I know, like, so what does Bryce do in the?
Bryce is the music director at St. John's Episcopal in Cold Spring Harbor.
Okay.
And so he's been doing that for a year and a half. So
And what does he play? Or is
he
he?
sings.
Or is he? I was gonna say,
He's a
or
singer.
vocal. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do either of you at this time do anything personal for yourself in the music industry?
What do you mean?
Like, so it's your job to teach students, but like outside of that, Are you playing, like I have some friends that are in a cappella groups or in a band, or so are you doing anything outside of your work as like a personal aspect of your
I'm not. I'm not right now.
I
Bryce
just
has
curious.
been kind of what's the word? Rejuvenating the Oyster Bay. There's like a Cold Spring Harbor music festival that's affiliated with the Oyster Bay like summer music program. So he's been kind of reinvigorating this concert series all year. It's work for him, but it's kind of been like a personal project that's become part of his job.
Mhm.
I don't have anybody that I play with just for fun or anything. It's, since becoming a mom 9 years ago, I don't have time and we got bills to pay. And, knitting is really my fun thing now. Flute is, it can be a fun thing. Like whenever I have a special performance to prepare for, uh, then it's really feels more personal and like I'm more personally involved when I'm preparing to actually perform. And I certainly do that from time to time, but most of the day-to-day like job stuff is teaching and administrative work. And I'm just tired and then I want to knit.
Well, before we get into knitting, I did tell you ahead of time that I would really love if you would break out your flute. Now,
Okay.
look,
I
none of
have
us are going to really care. We're not going to know. I'm sure none of us sitting here have the perfect pitch like you or are going to even be critical. But I would love it if I don't play 5 notes. Like, would you
I'll
mind?
play 5 notes. You wanted me to show my case.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, you
This
pulled them
is
out before we
my
started
favorite color.
recording. I'm sorry, but that is so epic compared to who's going to remember, the black cases, right? The black hard cases with the
Oh.
snaps on them. That's all I remember carrying my clarinet around in. Nothing fancy like that.
Yeah.
Now, so I mean, in terms of saying like, okay, you haven't prepared anything or practice, but I mean,
I
I
haven't played in a few weeks, really. So
all right. Well, that's because I was just going to say when you're working with your students, while you're getting yourself together here, don't you oftentimes have to show them what you
yeah,
are exactly? So
I'll
it's
demonstrate. But
it's
I
not
do most of my practicing now happens when I actually have a performance to prepare for or a gig or something. Even gigs, I can sight read a lot unless it's really difficult. Kind of half-ass a bunch of gigs. I shouldn't say that, but it's just, when you're busy, that's just the way that it happens. But if I'm actually performing like solo music or chamber music or something, then it comes out and I really do work at it again. So this is my flute.
does it have
I
a
have
name?
this little no, but I have this mask. Everybody always asks, why do I have masking tape on it? And that's because when you get sweaty, it slips. And so I just put a little bit of mask. You could like pay a lot of money to have fancy engraving on it. That kind of does the same thing, but one roll of masking tape will last you like 10 years. It's
It
only
doesn't
three
even look like
bucks.
masking tape. It looks pink.
That's because it's pink.
Oh,
Yeah, because I like pink. Yeah.
I was gonna say it
So
looks
let's
like
see.
something that you
I
put
don't even
there.
know what I'm going to play. I did just get it overhauled over the summer, though, so it is in amazing condition. And also, I should warn you over Zoom, sometimes it does weird things. So it might blow out. I had to teach over Zoom during the pandemic.
Right.
So you can tell me if if it's coming through sounding like a flute or if it just sounds like
Oh, I didn't even
crazy.
realize that that would be an issue. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is. Like there is yeah. Teaching over Zoom was special. And then there would be delays. And so sometimes then the sound would pause and then all of a sudden their playing would get really fast because the Zoom would catch up. And it was just like
it's the things you don't think about, right?
crazy. I don't recommend having to teach over Zoom, but
With
it's a
music.
thing. People do it. I'll just play a silly little thing.
That is funny. Yeah, so I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know if anyone else, just like you said, we heard the beginning and then it just like
Cut
went
out,
away.
right?
Oh, but
Yeah,
that's all right.
that's just how Zoom and stuff works. Yeah.
So interesting though, because I mean, you figure it catches our voices and that's all in real time. So that's really interesting that it picks up music.
But the beginning was lovely.
Yeah.
See, I could put on, hold on, wait. If there are settings on here, see, I don't even know where the settings are
Oh, don't stress yourself
anymore. Yeah,
about
I
it.
can't.
I know I was just putting you on the spot, but I just thought
Yeah.
it was something a little bit different, not to make you feel
I
like you're on
tried
a
to
family
play the
show.
12 Days of Christmas. That's all I played because that's what you're doing. So
Amazing. Well, I appreciate the effort nonetheless. So thank you.
yeah, if I have a YouTube channel, I don't update it often, but it's Lisa Westervelt, Lisa Jacklich
Oh, so
Westervelt.
you have a YouTube channel for your
I
music.
have a YouTube channel for my flute. Yeah.
Oh,
Um, Mostly from having to do like job interviews and applications and stuff, but every once in a
amazing.
while it gets updated.
Awesome. Well, that's always good to
So,
know. So I
yeah.
appreciate it. Thanks for letting me put you
So
on the spot. I
yeah,
figured,
I
oh,
forgot to warn you about the Zoom factor with the sounds.
no,
Yeah.
that's all right. That's all right. At least we can visually see that you actually play the
I
flute.
do actually
Hey,
play.
it's not like I ask every guest to put on a talent show as well. So consider yourself
Right.
special for that. So
Yeah.
let's dive into the whole knitting thing. Or actually, I'm going to just turn it over to you. For anybody who did not hear the story about how we met, I'm I'm gonna let you tell that story, and then of course I'll interject, my 2 cents about it. But as we discovered while we were doing this collaboration, it was actually just 10 years ago at the start of our collaboration in October that we met. And I will just at least start off by saying that for me, it's been a really lovely journey because you're one of a few people that I would say that have been in my community for so long that I've seen you like pre and post child, and now watching your family grow and watching Owen grow. And it really honestly is a blessing. It's like one of the most special things. I'm going to get myself choked up.
Oh
I have
no.
one other family that I think about that I started shearing their sheep when they were newly married and they were living on like a family farm that had originally had sheep back in the day. And the husband came and found me and got sheep and goats as like a wedding, an anniversary present. And anyway, like lo and behold, I swear it must be, well, their son that wasn't even born when I first met them has now gone off to college. So you
Wow.
figure it's probably been close to
20
20
years.
years that
Yeah.
I've been working with them to watch their family grow from just the single child and then her going through IVF and then having triplets. And so there's very few that I do get to see the growth of the family. I think when there's kids involved, when I know the people before they have kids and then when they have kids, I think that's even more special. While I do have lots of shearing clients that I've been working for 20 years, I think that's just the part of it that makes it really special for me. So, yeah, so tell everybody how we met.
Yeah, so it was, what was it, a Saturday morning in October 10 years ago.
And the
And I
sun
only know
was
that because
shining.
all the memories pop up on Facebook, right? And so we're doing our collaboration, and then a memory will pop up. I'll be like, oh, it's been 10 years. Um, yeah, just newly married, looking for something to do on a Saturday morning. And, I was into knitting, and I had seen on Facebook, Long Island Yarn and Farm Facebook page, and for some reason thought you were just open all the time, open to the public. And so I'm like, let's go check out this alpaca farm, see what that's all about. Love alpacas. And then we pull up to her house that we were like, I think it's somebody's house. I don't really know. And we were about to drive away, and we were like, maybe we should just knock on the door. And so that's exactly what we did. We knocked on the door. Tabitha opens her door in her pajamas. It's like 11 something in the morning. She's like, can I help you? And I'm like, I hear you have alpacas. And Bryce just like busts out laughing at me, I think. And that's just kind of how it started. You gave us you're like, I do, but mostly llamas. You had 4 alpacas then.
Yeah, yeah, we
Um,
had the alpaca mafia back then.
yeah, and no, Tabitha was really awesome. She could have just been like, "You crazy people, go away. It's Saturday morning. I'm in my pajamas." But she opened her doors to us and gave us a private tour of her farm. And this was really before you were even selling your yarn, I feel like, because you basically had one or two like bins, like clear bins of some yarn. I'm like, do you have any yarn that you sell? Because I'm a knitter, and and so I still haven't knit them up, but I picked out just actually what you were talking about last night. I picked out the 3 skeins of gray worsted weight, and you had given me that pattern to stick the artisanal yarn in between the cable scarf thing. I still haven't made it, but I have it. So,
Well,
and
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for me, like I said, I just remember the opening the door part. I remember being in my pajamas because from this day forward, anytime I'm talking to people, I will always use that example to say, look, we do ask you to make an appointment, but if you don't make an appointment and you show up, you're going to get what you get, which is sometimes me in my pajamas. I mean, these days, now, because that was before I had, office managers, that was before I had staff on the farm, that was back when I managed to cajole, my husband to help feed the animals if I wasn't around. So, things have changed drastically. So I have to pretty much all the time, after 8 o'clock be in clothes, unless I'm not feeling well. So it's funny to think back to that, but really ever since then, you've kept in touch, and I know a little more in the earlier days when it was a lot easier. Both our summer open house and our holiday open house, you'd be there with Owen all the time. Once because you had Owen, how much?
Well,
Well, pretty much right after. I mean, you weren't pregnant when you showed up at my doorstep.
the next year, yeah, because he was a November baby. So I remember we saw you with him when he was about 6 months old. We brought him to your open house, and you're like, "Oh, I haven't seen you guys in a while." I'm like, "That's because this happened, and I was in the hospital for your last open house." So,
And I remember early on, wasn't he afraid of the sheep? Yeah.
and yeah, he didn't like the animals early on, which was funny because we
Anytime they
thought he
made
would.
a noise, that would really make him cry.
Yeah.
And if I do remember, you guys would laugh though.
Yeah. Because you're like, come on, you love animals. Like, obviously, things have changed, and he's fine now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it has. I mean, it's been fun, and I know even when we started the collaboration and just kind of going through all the old pictures and things like that. So I mean, it's proof positive, in a sense that I really do like when people kind of sink their teeth into what we do here, it does mean a lot to me. And so to see you guys at every open house, when it was easier for you and you lived closer, I totally love seeing people. And actually, as I was just kind of scrolling through participants, I know Stephanie said she was gonna be able to jump on tonight, so I see
Oh,
her
hi,
on.
Stephanie.
And she's another family that I've literally been able to watch grow, and who comes to all of the events. And I know yourself with Owen, and her with her kids have gotten together as a result as well. So it's just all of this that I love being a part of, and helping to connect people. And so it's just been a joy to watch Owen grow up and evolve and get involved in the things that he's doing. And then equally yourself, right? So I know all along you were a knitter, and then I would see you, like I remember you would come sometimes and get like quantities of yarn, or oftentimes it was usually like a holiday. I'll never forget one time I was FaceTiming you. I was like in the basement, of course in my comfy clothes, and we were FaceTiming because you were choosing a yarn. It was like a
The
big,
bellflower. Yeah.
no, I feel like there was another one where you bought a large quantity of, I want to say Galaxy. There was another one. It wasn't the bellflower. I feel like it
Oh,
was something, because usually for like a big present, you would say, like,
the
I'm gonna,
shawl. It's the Long Island shawl.
I was like, you were like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get Bryce to get me this as my present, kind of thing. So that was always really fun to help you, pick yarns and just to know that you were choosing that as, like a special gift to yourself, of
I
course.
know. And now he's like, you've got to knit up the present I bought you from 2 years ago first.
You're like, don't you know how this
I,
works?
I have a
Oh.
stash. I have a stash.
But what I did see you start to do is that you started to get involved in test knitting, right?
Yeah, I'm not doing that so much anymore. I got,
Right.
yeah,
But
I
that's
ran
where
out of
you were at that point. That was something that you were doing, for a little bit. And then where did the podcast come in? When you decided to, first of all, where did you come up with the name Stop, Drop, and Knit?
after I recorded the first podcast episode, absolutely, actually,
Really?
I said, I need a name. And I don't know, it just came to me. And then I just did a quick Google to make sure nobody else had it. And it just kind of stuck. But there are always those projects that just grab you and you need to drop everything and just all of a sudden cast on that project. So that was one of the, like, stop and drop everything to knit the project. And then the
Yeah.
other thing with the drop part of stop, drop, and knit is I spin, and I do most of my spinning on a drop spindle. So
Oh,
it
now
kind of has a
got
double
it.
a
I
double
get
thing
it.
there.
You know
So
what?
stop.
Honestly, I forget
Yeah.
the part that you also spin because I feel like I don't honestly ever see it that much, more so than your knitting. So I do forget all about that.
Yeah, that's because I do it on a drop spindle and it takes a long time.
We
Pretty
were
much.
talking we were
Yeah.
talking about that last night
Yeah.
when Heidi was saying that that's how she first learned and that she was like, I am not getting anywhere fast right now. But at the same time, there's people that love their drop spindles.
I love my
And
drop spindle.
I've met, do you have a collection of them?
I have 3,
Okay.
I think,
I just
so
know some
3
people
different
that
weights.
collect so
Yeah,
many of them because in their own right, each of them,
beautiful.
if they come from artisans, they are like I mean, they're little furniture, but they're little like works of art.
And
Each
they're
of them,
decorative and yeah.
yeah, they're decorative. So I know a couple of people at least that really get into collecting their drop spindles, even if they don't use them.
Yeah. I that's another rabbit hole I could go down probably, but
Well, we're gonna
yeah.
stick and continue on the journey. So your podcast. So how many episodes in are you? How many years?
I just released episode 80 and passed my 3-year anniversary.
Do you
A few
have a
months ago.
regular drop, or do you just not keep that pressure on
I
yourself?
You know what I did for like the first year, I was pretty good about every week almost having an episode go up. Um, and then, because I started during the pandemic, right? So it was really easy to have a regular schedule. It was really easy to have a lot of free time to be knitting all the time because even when I had to teach and everything, it was over Zoom. So I could be knitting in my lap and listening with my ears and giving feedback, and nobody would know I was working on a pair of socks at the same time. So I was more easily able to be more productive, more consistently. Um, yeah, I think just, as the natural dyeing has become more of a thing, the time to knit, and of course being back at work and everything has, kind of take, and now that Owen has all these activities to go to, there's,
Yeah.
just there's a rebalance of things. Whereas that first year I was podcasting very consistently. And, I just released my first episode in probably 2 months just the other day. So,
And that was because we had to cancel.
and that was because, yeah, we had to cancel, and Owen was already out with his dad at the movies. And so I said, well, I can podcast. So I finally
But
recorded.
you know why I asked that? Because what I think is great about that is I know I'm guilty oftentimes myself as well. It's like if you like you feel, or some people, I don't want to put that on you, but some people feel there's a pressure to do X, Y, and Z rather than just enjoy the process. And if you've been able to let that go, give yourself grace, know that things change, priorities have to shift, but yet you're still doing it because you enjoy it and it's there, and people can look for it and find it. Then I think that's great. I think that's great for people to hear that too, because maybe there's somebody out there that wants to do something similar to that. I mean, even myself included, although I'm nowhere near, podcast form, because I just don't even can't even comprehend, editing and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it's just good to hear, so that you do it when you can do it, and it's something that you enjoy. And so I know Erin is being kind enough to drop things in the chat so people could easily find, your YouTube channel, which is way more productive than mine. So if you're going to follow anything, make sure you follow Lisa's for
Well,
sure.
what was really fun about recording the other night was it had been so long, and so I was really fresh, and I felt that genuine excitement about it come back. And there definitely had been some episodes where I didn't really feel invested in what I was doing. And then that just kind of like who's going to want to watch this if I'm not even that into it, right? And
Yeah.
so that's when I started giving myself more permission to just kind of take a break from it, not put that kind of pressure on myself, because it's like I we're in a small apartment. I have to either do it if I can while Owen is in school, or late at night after he's in bed, because there's just, and then doing it late at night, you don't have natural daylight. And so, there's the logistics of it. And then there's the editing that takes a long time. And, if I want to be really excited about what I'm putting out there, because I think people are going to really resonate with it if you're really genuine and really excited about it. And so I definitely feel like the episodes that have the best engagement are the ones where I am like really genuinely excited to be showing things and catching up with people, and not just stressing about putting out another podcast.
Yeah, no,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not in any place where I'm making any money off of any social media that I do. So I get, for some people that are at that place, there probably is that pressure to always continue. However, I feel like that's such a great message also, because you just have to do what feels right when it feels right. And I think people are always going to feel when it's genuine and when you're
Mhm.
genuinely into something, excited about something. So you're right. And I'm
And
glad.
it's great because just like you have your people, like there are like those handful of people that whenever I post a video, they're like, "Oh, I missed you. It's so great to see you again." And it's such a good feeling that like,
It is.
"Oh, I don't even know you and you miss me," right? So
I
it's
mean, absolutely. And I
so
think
wonderful.
maybe people on the other side don't realize that, at all. And it is. So it is really nice. And it is
Yeah,
nice.
I love it for the engagement. I mean, I'm not necessarily a comfortable hanging out with people in person, right? I'm like I love being by myself doing my own thing, but at the same time, like my husband gets tired of hearing about all my knitting. He's like, "Okay, like I get it," right? So it's really nice to share all of that with a community, but you're really just talking to a screen, and unless you get that feedback from people leaving comments and saying hello and stuff, then it's hard to feel that connection with people. So yeah, if you ever watch one of my podcasts, leave a comment so that I know.
Absolutely. No, it's such
Yeah.
a good point. And look, myself included, when I said, even with regards to this programming, when I started it last year, it was so last minute because I had the idea, but I was afraid to pull the trigger. And even then, when I pulled the trigger, for me, once I say something on social media, then I know I'm stuck and you can't go back. And so at least there was some positive reinforcement. But then you would think that, okay, so now we're year two, that would go away, and that feeling doesn't go away. And like I always say, and I'm happy to say, it's like you're like that kid that puts an invite out for their birthday party, and you're just hoping people are going to come, and it doesn't matter how old we are, everybody feels that. So I think that's also, again, just a great message for everybody, knowing that, we're all just out here doing what we enjoy. And even though we shouldn't be doing it, for the likes and for the responses, it still is nice. And it's still nice to know that people appreciate it. So I want to take the time to say thank you for those of you that have dropped me some DMs or let me know what you like about the program. And I try to pass that off to the guests. And at the same time, and I'm sure Lisa's the same way, that doesn't mean that we want you to say everything is great. Like at the same time, like I genuinely want people's input, right? Even with our collaboration that we've been doing, which we're going to dive right into, we just came up with this idea again, like literally pulled it out of both of our enthusiasms. And some of what we thought we were going to start by doing, we quickly changed based on people's responses, and it's still ever evolving. So again, we do these things because we're doing them for you guys. And so
Yeah.
when we hear things like, oh, the get together is great on a Monday when there's really not much going on. Where meanwhile, we were like, let's do it on a Friday night when it'll be fun. And other people have things to do. So, it's just that kind of evolution that I think feedback is always great for. So, what I always say is if you have constructive comments, as long as you serve it with a bow, that's my saying. As long as
Exactly.
you serve it with a bow, it is always taken in a positive light because it's served with kindness. So,
So I know your community loves animals, and I have a little visitor
oh,
within
so
arm's
sweet.
reach, and you haven't met him. So
No.
yeah,
Oh, but I know who. Well, I know it's one of two.
this is Felix. He's not wanting to stay, but that was Felix. He's here. Now he's gone.
So he looks like my Mozart.
Yeah. He's a
Oh,
black
so
self.
tell everybody what you have that runs around your house.
Yeah, I've got two English Angora bunnies. They're both naughty. He's the one that just chewed up my yarn. That was Felix. Yes.
Oh,
Erin just asked which is the naughty one. That was it. Elmer Fuzz is
that's
white,
that's
and
the
he
cutest name. Did everyone hear that? It's not Elmer Fudd. It's Elmer
Elmer Fuzz.
Fuzz.
Yeah. So he is in his pen right now. I can see him right there, but he's not within arm's reach. But he is white with blue eyes, and he is really sweet. But neither of them are fixed, so I
Now, do
have
they
to
live
keep them
together or separate when they go in?
separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. But do you let them run around the house together
Um.
and they get
Well,
along?
I do sometimes if I'm in the mood to do a lot of cleaning.
Right. Okay. Because I was going to say two boys, especially running
They're
around.
very territorial still
Yeah.
because neither of them have been fixed yet. So right now, like Felix was here first, so he's kind of was used to having run of the place. And then for a while, when Elmer was young enough, they were both out together, no problems all the time. And then, Felix did a lot of humping. But the moment that Elmer got old enough, about 2 months in, and started humping back, that's when the territorial behavior started happening. It doesn't matter that they're both guys, they're just both rabbits, and that's what rabbits do.
Yep. Yep.
So, they don't fight. They just, it's just the spraying.
Yeah.
They like to mark each other. I don't want Elmer's beautiful white fluff getting marked with urine because gross. So they're
Oh,
mostly kept separate. They both shared an apple before, so they were both kind of like together on either side of the apple,
yeah.
and they love each other, but
And now
it's a
people
lot of
might be
extra
wondering
cleaning.
if you don't have rabbits, so they are very easily litter box trained. And as
Yes,
long as your house is rabbit proofed, because of
true.
course they are chewers, hence where Felix got into your yarn, much like a cat would. I mean, I've heard of cats
Yeah,
eating people's yarn, so it's not really that much different, but mostly it's usually making sure that your house is rabbit proof for cords and things like that, because they are notorious for getting behind couches,
yeah.
all those intricate places that they can squeeze into.
It was like 3 iPhone chargers in, and then we finally got it all together. So
Well, I mean, again, that's great because I honestly totally forgot all about them running around your house and
yeah.
being able to introduce them to people as well too. Now, you might be better than me. Have you used, so first, do you pluck or do you shear them?
Um, I am at the point where I'm brushing them now. When I first got them, it was I gave them haircuts with scissors because it was getting hot and I felt bad letting it grow to like the desired length. So I just found it easier to just, that they weren't molting yet. So I just completely like gave them very thorough haircuts everywhere. Took about three
When you
days
say
each run.
you're brushing them, is that how you're harvesting the fleece versus plucking?
That, yeah, I don't just like, I mean, sometimes like if I see that one is loose, I'll just, it comes out easier, but mostly I just brush it out. Other places I'll use the scissors still. But I'm trying to do as much of the brushing as I can because then like it really just takes out the quality fiber and not the guard hairs on top.
Right.
So yeah, so I've got I haven't really used it yet. I was bad about separating it all when I first did the haircuts. So I'm kind of actually these past few days have been going through it and separating out like what I can use to spin.
Okay.
Most of the disgusting stuff I just got out right away, but there's like all the second cuts or shorter bits, then I'll separate that. And if it's clean enough, I'm putting it in a bag to use for stuffing.
Now you said they're English Angoras?
Yeah.
Okay, so English Angoras, for instance, there are a couple of different varieties of Angoras, and English Angoras are actually let's say, the ones with the nicest fleece, if you will. However, they're the ones that mat the easiest because they have the least amount of guard hair. So my Mozart and Chopin are English Angoras. I've had hybrids before, crosses between giants and giant Angoras and English Angoras that had a little more guard hair. So that's a little bit of, fiber conversation in terms of even like with my llamas, the higher amount of guard hair, it's a coarser fleece, or you have to de-hair it in order to get those guard hairs out so you have that softer down. On the other hand, they mat less, and it also repels any vegetable matter or VM that they might get into, at least with my animals with regards to the hay. So the English Angoras are the nicest, but they are the toughest, I would say, or the most maintenance,
High
they're high
maintenance. Yeah.
maintenance. Exactly. And having yours in the house, is probably nicer, I would think, in the sense that you could just kind of grab them and brush them, as they're going by. I just to take the opportunity, I actually shear mine. Mostly it's a time factor. I don't have the time. When we do brush them, but I find then that also gets into the bristles and can also affect, for me at least, a little bit of the quality of it. So it's either plucking or shearing, and I really prefer to shear and get it off. But I mostly have mine for education, so I will say I have quite a bit of their shearings that I've saved and equally have not done anything with. So now I don't feel so bad. So, okay, natural dyeing. So I know, I mean, in the let's go in the I don't want to say the brevity part of it, but just quickly tell people how you got started with that, in terms of like, where did all of a sudden your interest come from that you decided you were going to get involved in natural dyeing? Because up until this point you were involved in knitting, doing some test knitting, just recreational knitting for yourself. Had you done any sort of acid dyeing or any other type of dyeing before you got into natural dyeing?
No,
Nothing at all.
actually. The
Okay.
only thing that I had done, and I'm not sure that it even happened before the natural dyeing. With Owen, when he was little, we did some snow dyeing with the Kool-Aid and the snow.
Okay.
But the only other acid dyeing that I've done is like when I get my Paradise Fibers subscription and they happen to send like acid dyes or something with it.
Okay.
But otherwise, I've only even done acid dyeing maybe one or two times, and that's it. It's been exclusively natural dyes from the beginning. I think, like most people who get into the natural dyes, we start with things that are not necessarily color fast, but are readily available. Like the very first thing I dyed with was red cabbage.
But
And
so but at the same time, like, look, I have a lot on my plate. You have a lot on your plate. I mean, everybody's busy. So where all of a sudden, like I've always loved the concept of natural dyes. back in the day when my friend Linda was doing some work for me and lived here on Long Island. She was my spinning friend. I had her doing some natural dyes with our yarn. I've always admired a few of the businesses that are out there doing it, but it's not like I'm like, let me add that to something that
Yeah.
I'm going to do. So where
And
are
I didn't think that I was going to either, because it is so time consuming. The first year I maybe natural dyed 3 times, and I never thought it was going to be something that would take over my life. Like, I even remember saying on my podcast, like, it's fun, but I can't ever picture, like, I don't think I'll ever be natural dyeing like full, right? And not that it's full time, but it's certainly a much more prominent, part of my life now. No, they were the first couple things I did was red cabbage, black beans, and I want to say dandelions, maybe. And those were like sporadically, months in between those experiments. Just maybe avocado was up there too. Probably was one of the first things I did. But
so
it was
is
just
this
a
something that
play.
started during the pandemic for you as well, right?
That Yeah, those first few were maybe before the pandemic, when Owen was in preschool.
Okay.
Um, and it's just kind of a random weekend experiment type thing. But then over the pandemic was when I started to do it much more. I was looking, Owen was homeschooled then from kindergarten, or in virtual kindergarten, whatever virtual kindergarten is, he was in it. Um, and, all of a sudden he was home all the time again, and I needed to keep him entertained. And so I remember, like, I would take him picking dandelions with me, and he was little, so he was very agreeable back then. He was really into collecting acorns one fall, and so he would like fill up his little toy truck with acorns, and then he would help me smash them up and everything. And yeah, so he was really helpful with gathering materials to use when he was little. And then I would kind of involve him in little bits, like, look, we're going to take this yarn and we're going to use these acorns to put color on it. And he'd be kind of half excited. He'd like to see it, and he'd like to smash things when appropriate, and you know just kind of see the whole thing happen.
So my first question for you would be, when you're thinking about natural dyeing, and I think that there's also a lot of things out there that people would think would work with regards to natural dyeing, but there's a difference between something that you can use as a natural dye that's going to be, what's the word that they use when it holds, when it uh when
Color
it's
fast, maybe.
color fast, versus I know that there's some things that you would think would make great color, but the color doesn't stay.
Yeah, washes out right away. Fugitive.
So I'm assuming one that you did a little bit of research at first, but so not to put you on the spot, but could you maybe name a few things that maybe somebody would think would be great to dye with, but on the other hand, it's not something that's going to create a color that's going to hold?
Sure. Beets, for instance. Everyone's like, oh, well, why don't you try beets?
I
They're
know,
like,
why they
right,
make my fingers red? My fingers don't change.
right?
My
And they
fingers
come off and everything, but it won't hold. It'll just wash right out. And I mean, it might work if you don't ever wash the yarn. And you can, and certainly it's fun to play with still. It can be like a fun way to do a project with kids, and just have something exciting to do, just to see what happens. But if you're looking to have a long lasting yarn, turmeric is actually I saw that pop in the chat,
Yeah.
is a very beginner friendly dye, because we all have access to it, most of us, in our spice cabinets. And you just have to redo it every few years, right? So if you're going to do something and dye strictly with turmeric, you can do that, but you're going to have to redo it if you want that color to last, or to like revitalize that color. It's not going to be like years and years
Is there
lasting.
something that makes a particular item be color fast versus not? Whether it be fruit, plant, like, I mean, I know that might be a tough question for you, but what makes something have a color that'll hold and not? Is there a rhyme or reason to it?
I think So I'm not a scientist, right? All of my learning has been done through just my own research and experimenting. So I just from the research I've done and the experience I have with some things, I do have a pretty good idea of what is going to last a long time versus what I shouldn't even bother doing with, or I can do it, but I just know it's not going to be for anything long lasting. Um, there are ways, there are materials like tree barks and black walnuts and avocados that have natural tannins in them. And these have been used in like the tanning of leather in like historical times with indigenous groups. And um, so those will can be used either on their own, or they can be used as kind of like a pre-treatment to help either get a different kind of color, or to help, like, particularly tannins are good to use with cellulose fibers. I don't do a lot with cellulose fibers. I mostly work with protein fibers, so animal,
So
like,
just to be
well,
clear, so cellulose fibers meaning plant.
plants. Yeah. So I do know that with plant fibers, it requires a different pre-treatment than for protein fibers. And that is not my expertise. I don't really do that. Just because I haven't, because a lot of the people that do that are maybe thrifting things from the store, or are doing like ready-made clothes or something that they want to add a color to, that's not necessarily wool and yarn.
Okay.
So
So,
I'm mostly,
okay. So actually, and for a minute, and maybe that was just me spacing out, but for a minute, when you were talking about that, I was thinking you meant as far as like the materials that you were using to dye, but you're talking about what you're putting the dye on.
on, right,
Okay.
right. So for what I do, which is mostly wool and silks and stuff like that, protein fibers, um, there are some things like black walnuts and avocado that you don't have to have a pre-treatment for. They will take color and hold it quite well. And then most of the time, though, we're going to want to pre-treat the fiber with aluminum sulfate, alum sulfate. So that is what I use as my pre-mordant. It is food safe, so it's like as non-toxic as you can get, because you use it to like pickle things. And so there are other things like copper and titanium and stuff that have been used historically, but are generally not considered safe to use. So there are still natural dyers that will use some of those materials, and they'll just alter the colors to different, they'll like kind of give you different color palette with the same dye material. But I would say in general, most natural dyers today are going to be working with alum and also iron. And iron can be used either to pre-treat your fiber if you immediately want to get a certain color, or you can use it to shift a color, or maybe create a variegated yarn, like half just alum and then half like shifted or something with iron.
But is the shifting of the color, does that happen after or before?
Most of the time we do it after.
Yeah,
Some of
that's
the
what I thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
with what's one of my favorite things to dye with is mushrooms. And that's kind of like this whole new world. It's my favorite thing. So
Okay, so we're not even going to say, but I am just going to say that's a sneak peek for February.
yes,
That's
so
all
we're
we're
gonna
going
be
to.
working with mushrooms in February, and I'm so excited. So I think with most of the plant materials, like barks and leaves and things like that, you're going to probably use iron to shift the color afterwards. With the mushrooms, some of them will only react with the color that you're aiming to get if you pre-treat it with iron. Fungus for my birthday. So like
Going to be a
there's,
pretty fungus.
yeah, there's a really pretty purple that I was able to get recently, where if I had used alum to treat the fiber, I wouldn't have gotten a beautiful purple that I got. So I knew that because I had done research, I knew, and thankfully other people have done research, so I could skip all those experimentation steps and go right to what I was going to get the purple with, which is to, instead of pre-mortancing the fiber with alum, you do that with the iron first, and then you put it in.
Now,
So
so, and just to bring it to maybe somewhat layman's terms, because I know the expression of, I know you can sadden it, and then what's the opposite of it? Because I know it's not you make it happy. What's the, you
so
can
when you're saddening
sadden or
something,
brighten?
yeah, when you're saddening something, you're basically making it more alkaline. I think
And
this is,
you're
I'm
using
not a
what to do
chemistry.
that? Is
Huh?
that
You can
iron?
use like a, like baking soda, washing soda,
Okay.
and then to make it more acidic, you can, anything like lemon juice or vinegar. But if you want the color to really stay, you're probably going to use more like of a vinegar for that. But
And so the
vinegar,
opposite of saddening something, are you brightening the color?
yeah. So basically, if you're brightening it, you're probably making it more acidic, and if you're saddening it, you're probably making it more alkaline.
Okay.
So, and I'm not a chemistry person, so
Oh, but and
yeah,
look, it's just I just even know those terms, myself as well. And so I would imagine to some degree, like you said, there's research that's done out there so that you have a little bit of an anticipated understanding of what the reaction's going to be and what you can get as a result of it.
yeah. And red cabbage is actually a really fun thing that you can play with if you just want to like have fun playing with like the different colors you can get. For red cabbage, when you add vinegar to it, you're gonna turn it more like a fuchsia kind of pink. And then if you add baking soda to it, it's gonna turn more bluish green. So it's
And
not, it's not a color fast. Huh?
is that the actual red cabbage, meaning you're just literally going to have to go out and buy cabbage?
Buy a
And
cabbage head, you chop it up, you cook the cabbage, and then you strain the cabbage out of it. It's really stinky.
I'm like, we have a lot of cabbage usage in this
Yeah.
house. You need to let me know these things. Now, here's something interesting. So, okay, if you, let's say, because I know we've talked a little bit about like harvesting happening at certain times of year when especially plant materials or things that you're foresting are only available, and then that you can freeze them. Some of them you don't need to freeze. So let's just say something like that. After you cook the cabbage, is it the liquid you're using or
Yeah.
the, okay, so
Yeah.
let's say you do that because you're making something with the cabbage. That liquid, can you store it?
You can in the refrigerator for probably a few weeks or
Oh,
something.
okay.
Not really long term. I mean, cabbage, that's a fugitive dye anyway. So that was just an example for like
Okay. So wait.
peeing.
Oh, when you
But
say a fugitive, so there's a word. So when you say a fugitive dye, that means a color that's not going to hold.
right.
Okay, great.
It will fade quickly. Now I have my first cabbage yarn and it's purple and it's beautiful. And I've never washed it. I've never let it see sunlight and the color's still there. So if I were going to actually
Keep
knit
it
that
hidden
up,
away.
yeah, it's there. I would just probably use it in like a blanket or something that,
Right.
like a pillow, like something that I wasn't going to need to wash that frequently and that I wasn't going to sit in the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So next to, I mean, just throw out some examples for us before then we'll kind of, I know a lot of people that are with us right now are already familiar with our collaboration. And for me, this was really about people, getting to have a little understanding about this whole process. I mean, if people can't envision for themselves, that you are obviously either purchasing materials to utilize them. You perhaps have a dye garden where you can then harvest those materials, or you are out on foot, harvesting what you can find in the wild, let's
right.
say. So all of that is all being collected by hand. And the only thing that I can think of to kind of assimilate that too, for any of our knitters that have worked with Kiviot, for instance, muskox, that is a fiber in which in very small quantities is, or even buffalo, for instance, that is literally just collected like off of the fences or anything that they've shed, because you are not catching a buffalo and grooming them or shearing them in any way, shape, or form. And even if you were, just for instance, like camel down. So you're getting such a small amount of usable fiber from the animal that that's why it is so costly. And so even in this instance, it's just that harvesting time that sometimes goes into the process and then therefore reflects in the cost as well. And I just think it's really important, for people to understand these things, much like I'm constantly telling the story about our yarns. It's important for people to just understand, the entire process. No, I'm not shearing a buffalo. That is not going to be up on the demonstration.
Right.
People threaten that they want me to have a camel on my farm, and they are very much, they're in the camelid family, and they are very personable, but they're very big, and I would need to change my fence structures. So, I
Keep
think
talking. I'm just plugging in my phone battery here, and I've got to just,
absolutely
I
no
got the low
worries.
battery warning. So
So,
hold on.
one of the things I think then what I'll do is I'll use the opportunity to just give kind of the brief synopsis. Again, many of you have been participating in our collaboration, but essentially, the kudos that I want to give to Lisa is that somewhere along the way, she decided that this was something that she wanted to do, and as her, let's call it side hustle, which I think is
Mhm.
just a great phrase, that she was going to register her business, and so that she could have a store and be able to collect payment and then have to pay taxes as a result of that, but making it official. And I literally, the part I joke about is, yes, I was literally driving and happened to see her post. Let's not be critical about the fact that I might have seen that driving. I can only be honest. And I remember I was at a stoplight, and I remember exactly where I was. And then I literally proceeded to start texting her. I have Bluetooth, so I'm using this as an example, but I mean, I can talk through my Bluetooth. And then we just started jamming back and forth. And when I get super excited about something, people think I'm out of my mind. And thankfully, Lisa was equally, on board and excited about the idea concept. And I said to her, I don't know where this is going to go. I said, but I love natural dyes. And I am just so excited for you that you've registered this as a business. And I want to find some way for us to work together so that I can, bring people to you. We've had such a long standing, friendship and fiber. And I just thought it was going to be so cool, to be able to find a way to put that all together. And meanwhile, for me, since COVID, I mean, I started doing collaborations pre COVID, but of course, for everybody during COVID, collaborations got really popular. And so I had already been working with dyers on my white picket fence base. But I just thought this was going to be such a cool concept. And so, really, in my mind, what was going to be just a one time, like, let's do this. And, you know, we don't know where it's going to go. I will never forget right where I'm sitting right now, doing this piece. Lisa was right across from me and brought all of her color cards and some different samples of things. And we just started jamming back and forth. And here's the thing, folks, if I ever hit you up, there you go. They were
All
all
colors are.
spread out all over
Yep.
the table. And I remembered I didn't know where this was going, but I took pictures, and actually I have to find those. And so, this is a PSA. If I ever hit you up about an idea, it's on you if you fall down the rabbit hole with me. If I'm able to, get that excitement to take a hold of you as well, like, you're in for it. So I don't know if anywhere along the way, Lisa's like, shit, I signed up for a year. And I hope not,
Yeah.
but we,
I love it.
what I thought was going to be this one time thing, we were both just so excited about all the different possibilities. And it just kind of kept growing and evolving as we were talking. But we knew we had to act fast to be able to really kind of get it off. And where it started was because we were talking in early September, I think, by the time we finally got together. And it was merely because you mentioned that you could get a particular color that would be suitable for October. And we have this running joke here on our farm and in our office with a whole, like, who loves PSL, pumpkin spice latte. I do. Jill hates it. So we're always teasing her, about the whole like autumnal seasonal thing and the color. Actually, even so much so
I'm still drinking them now in December.
I just and I actually so I always I did a little video the other day because I always get my cats like bougie cat food treats that I would never buy them otherwise. And I found this pumpkin soup. It was like tuna or chicken and pumpkin soup. And then I got a bunch of them and I gave some to Jill too, just to torture her that she would have to give them to her cat. So, it's this running joke. And we were like, okay, it's perfect. And that was how that started, was like, okay, we got to kick this off in October. We got to hit this color because it's just like super fun and it's poking at Jill, and a lot of our community knows how this all goes. And then on top of it, we're like, okay, October, it was Friday the 13th. And then we're like, that would be perfect. And like, well, we have to keep it consistent. And so that's how dropping our monthly collaboration on the second Friday of every month came about as well. So, these things mostly are organic. It's not really planned, but, you just kind of got to roll with, that enthusiasm. And this is where it's gone. We came up with the name Life, LIYF. That's my acronym, Life on Long Island. I'm so in tune to trying to keep everything as local as possible. But for me, local can also be the United States. And so, even with all of our fibers, we are resourcing American raised fibers, with the exception of the silk and or bamboo if we happen to use it. Of course, the icicle is synthetic, so that doesn't count. But any of our wools, any of our alpaca that we utilize, and then we have our whole farm to yarn collection, right, which is really bringing in that carbon footprint where we can say exactly where it's from. So we've got lots of different variations, but to really, really bring it home and utilize materials that are solely being resourced on Long Island, I just am so proud of and happy about, and so pleased that Lisa really, as far as I see it, is doing the work to bring this education to the forefront for everybody to have a better understanding of what it's all about. And we had a few months planned out, and then we're going to just continue to kind of see how it evolves. And the other part of it, of course, is that along with it, I thought, well, many of you are participating. There's some people that are participating that are from our local area, but many of you are not. And so then we also wanted to make it kind of like a kit. And we wanted to have something related to Long Island as well, to be able to bring something to you to go along with it. And that's also been fun. That's been my job, to kind of curate little goodies to go along, with the kits that we've done. So that's kind of in brevity what we've been doing. I mean, I'm super excited and blessed for those of you that have been with us since the beginning and have purchased a skein each time. There's only 20 skeins. That was kind of what we discussed. That was what Lisa could handle. And we did want it to be a little bit of like a FOMO kind of thing. We wanted it to be limited edition. We wanted people to know that they had to jump on if they wanted to get it. And, that's also kind of what makes it, fun in that sense, I think. And so, yeah, so I have nothing in my hands from the first month, but I asked Lisa, and I know I see Erin showing hers on screen. Elizabeth, she doesn't have her video on, but I know she made a pumpkin because
So
she was
here's mine.
by yours. So for anybody who's unfamiliar, with what we've been doing, for those of you that are, I appreciate your patience. Elizabeth's got her pumpkin up there as well. So our first one, Sunken Meadow Sassafras, right? Was that what it was?
Sunken Forest Sassafras.
Sunken Forest
Yeah,
Sassafras. Because
foraged from Fire Island, Sunken Forest on Fire Island, I was able to collect a lot of windfall bark from sassafras trees. And so I knew that the bark would give me this interesting orange color. And it just, to me, seemed, it's kind of the same color as butternut squash is, I think. Yeah. So I just thought it would be really special to make it into a pumpkin.
And
And so,
Penny, I don't have you up on my top few people. And so I'm sorry that I didn't see that you showed your hat, but I saw that in the chat because I do have to give kudos to Penny, who honestly, hands down, is the first one to bang out something from the yarns, and everybody will agree. And it's amazing. And it's also a lot of fun. And it's a great example because at least then we're like, look, that's what it knits up like. So I do thank you so much for
I
that,
know.
Penny, for sure. But yeah, the first color just kind of hit it right on the mark for the month. And then I paired that with a tea. A friend of mine runs Sweet Woodland Farms, and she actually has her own herbal farm out on the North Fork of Long Island. So she creates all of her own teas, some salves, various things. She's really actually well known for her elderberry syrup because she grows all of her own elderberry. And so we paired that up with a tea infuser with a little llama and then a little sampling of her teas as well to go along with that. And then November. So now
Well, mine is wound up. I haven't knit it yet, but
I was gonna say, and I've got November because look, here we go about November. And also, what I love is at least just seeing some that are on the screen. Part of what we should also mention is that there's always a little bit of variation within the 20 skeins of the yarns as well. And that's the uniqueness of it because, this is not exact magic. So you're always gonna, have some differences. And of course, on the screen too, you're gonna always see the color a little bit different. Now, we knew brown was going to be tough, and we combined it with the fact that it is on a fingering weight, which is a 400-yard skein. Elizabeth has got hers up there. Now, of course, our fingering weight yarns are more expensive because there's more yardage, and then of course the yarns itself, as we've talked about, are more expensive. So it was a bigger kit, but it was also brown. And I'm sorry, everybody knows how I feel about this. We know how people feel about brown, and it's okay. And I know my brown lovers that are out there, and I specifically also wore brown tonight for that. But hands down, guys, I'm the one that's going to be able to say that it is always going to be a slower sell, and that is just the way it is, and it's okay. And I know Elizabeth's going to yell at me after this, and I'm going to hear her in my DMs because, again, there are some of you that realize that brown goes with everything. It doesn't matter your skin color, your hair color. However, the proof positive is, which I'm okay with saying, this is actually the one that had not sold out. So if by some chance there's anybody that's on that wants to still jump in when I get to Vogue Knitting Live at the end of the month, these 3 kits are going to get pulled apart and we're just going to sell them individually. But this month we actually did the fingering weight yarn that was done with black walnuts to give us this really beautiful, kind of like a hazelnut. That's the color I would call it. It's not like a rich chocolate brown. It's almost like a milk chocolate. It's like a
right.
hazelnut color.
Yeah.
And then because we knew the holidays were coming and I knew what I was going to be releasing, what we paired this with was the ever so popular Sheep Locks Wreath Kit. So you got the yarn along with the kit. And
I bought the kit. I had to have it.
and these are always discounted, meaning if you bought this and this separately, of course, it would be a whole lot more. I think it's like a 15% discount. So anyway, guys, I am just saying if you're new to us, you're on and you didn't jump in, there are still 3 kits of Nutty Life that are left. Now your TDOC through 23 does not apply to this because it's already a 15% discount, but I'm just letting you know that they are there. And by the end of the month, when I go to Vogue, they, I'm sure, are not going to come home with me, but they're not going to be sold as a kit. So just letting you know that's still there. Then our last month, which of course
And
knocked
look
it
at
out
how
of the
great everything goes
honestly,
together.
those 3 go
The
amazing
natural dye
together.
palette is amazing.
Now, the only thing that we're purposely doing is we're changing up the weights that we
I
are
know.
using. So, in the end, if you're with us for the long haul, you're inevitably going to get yarns that are going to go really well together. I would say sneak peek for anybody that has Nutty Life and you've not knitted up. You might want to hang on to it until February is about around the corner.
Could always knit Stephen West Penguono though.
Okay.
That one he combines just
Lots of
anything
different.
and everything, like all different weights.
And I
So
always say, although I don't think she's with us this evening, if you're Ruth Ann, you don't care
mhm,
about Gage, and you just throw things in together and have a good time with
yeah.
it. So these are the three. So that December was our
Grinchy
Gucci
goldenrod
goldenrod, and we had a lot of fun promoting that one.
with the
And
Grinch.
actually, I have to say, I was surprised. There were two people that jumped on and actually grabbed three of them. Most people usually grab one, so that actually did sell out that night. And we paired that with a preserve that I was super excited. A friend of mine owns Josephine's Feast, and she hand makes all of her own jams and preserves. And it was a beach plum preserve, which is another fruit that is harvested just from Long Island beaches. So
Mhm,
we paired that with that. So hopefully some people are
mhm.
enjoying that as well. Who? Oh, Jennifer. I'm no Jennifer's not going to be purplish. So just think about what February is. How about that?
We're already thinking about February. I've got the
Yeah,
January sneak
she's
peek
already asking
though.
about February. So let's go with that before we start to lose everybody. We let's talk about what we decided to do for January, because the drop is going to be Friday the 12th. We do it at 8 p.m. Every time. And so we changed things up a little bit this time. Of course, it's January, it's the new year. I always think of like champagne and bringing in the new year, new light. So that's kind of the theme that we were going with. I will say Lisa had a different direction. I did ask her to shift it. So her direction is going to be on hold for March. So, see, we are planning ahead. So why don't you go ahead and let them know what we're using, what we're doing. Now, some people, I will say, if you get the yarn, but anybody is invited, it's usually a week and a half after. So if we drop on a Friday, the following Monday, so 2 Mondays after, we have our Life on Long Island community get together, and anybody is welcome. And that's really where we delve a lot more into Lisa's process and what we did to get that yarn. People will show projects that they've already knitted, like Penny. And then on the other hand, that's when we also do give sneak peeks about what we're doing. So some people saw a snippet, but now we have
Mhm.
a full-fledged
A
batch to be able
full
to
skein. I'm halfway through. Actually, I've got to pull them out of the dye bath after the Zoom to the second half of all the skeins. But
So why
yeah,
don't, for people who don't know, let them know what material you were using, like kind of that process, how we got to it.
yeah. So oops, I just dropped it. Also, the Stop Dropping It podcast is because I always drop something every time. So it's so many different things. Um, yeah, once Tabitha was like really wanting the champagne, I was, I had to rack my brain a little bit to what I could use that I could get like a nice light kind of festive color for that, with something that I could forage right away really easily. And so the material that I came up with is pine cones. The pine cones will give a pretty subtle color, but they have that natural tannin in them. And it's just the right amount of color that you can get out of the dye bath for the champagne yarn. But one other thing that I said to Tabitha too was it's too bad you don't have like something with sparkle in it. That's like a plain white with a sparkle in it, because champagne, I was thinking the new year and just sparkle or shimmer. I know you prefer shimmer to sparkle, right? And it's really a small shimmer. And she's like, well, I do have the pink clove. And so we experimented with it. I had to do a couple of experimental dye baths to
And just
see
to jump in,
if
that's
it could
because
work.
for people who are unfamiliar, prior to this, we were strictly utilizing our white picket fence base.
Right, which is just
So,
white.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't have the pink clove anymore though, because they're all in the dye bath. So I can't show what it started out as, but I did post that in the Instagram highlights
Yes.
yesterday. So you can see where it started. And this is where we are ending up. This is another one. It's going to be really hard to
Do you
see.
have anything white? We did this last
Um,
time. Do you have anything white nearby? Sorry to put you on the spot for that, but that's the best thing to put it next to.
I have your white picket fence in the bedroom. It's right there. I can go.
Go get it.
I just have to pop off for a second.
Perfect, no
So, all
problem. So one
right.
of the things I will say also while she's going, because she mentioned the highlights, for anybody that's not been with us on this journey from the beginning, or even if you want to go back to it. So on Lisa's Instagram, which is Lisa Westervelt. So I don't think she has it as Stop, Drop, and Knit. But if you go to her Instagram, you'll see when you go to somebody's profile that they can create highlights. And so she's created a highlight for each month because she's done an amazing job to be able to really recap her whole process and the dye process. So it really is interesting. You can kind of see how this whole thing evolves.
Yeah. So here's your white picket fence.
Now I know, because I've seen this in person, I know that that looks like, for instance, for me, that looks a bit tan, but
Right.
I know that it's not.
It's not. It's, I mean, I tried to get champagne colored, so I don't, it's hard, you know,
I mean, I know when I saw it in person,
worsted.
it's definitely, yes, it's worsted.
This
Um,
one's worsted again.
but it's more of like a peachy tone, right? Like
It
a
has
light,
a peachy tone because that pink clove underneath gives it that little bit of like that undertone of that pink clove underneath
right.
helps bring out that little peachy shade.
And it reminds me too, for anybody who's really been with me, I've done a yarn before that we called Champagne that was actually a light fawn. So it's a very light tan base, and it had a gold nylon strand plied into it. So this just has the shimmer. That's really only when the light catches it. And so,
You'll
and
never
the
see
only
that.
reason,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not going to see it on Zoom. And the only
Yeah.
reason why I'm just being so strong about the fact that, you know, because I know how people feel about brown. It doesn't matter if it's tan, it doesn't matter if it's dark chocolate or if it's hazelnut. So I can assure you that it's definitely more of like a peachy, you know, think of like a dry champagne, you know, kind of color. And then it does have a bit of that sparkle.
And here it is. Like I was worried. Remember, I was worried it was going to be too close to the sassafras.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not. It's
No.
not at all. It's very different.
Yeah.
So you can see those side by side too.
And it's a calmer color, but again, for me, I'll take the fall for it in a sense, though, that I really wanted, you know, something that was going to remind me of what I feel like most people will toast with. Because look, even if you hate champagne, you know you're somewhere and they're pouring glasses, or you feel like you got to pour yourself a glass of sparkling something, even if you don't want to drink it, right? It's just sort of the signature of how people bring in the
And
new.
then you look at all of it together. I still have the white in my hand too. They all go together. And I can tell you February is going to be more along the lines, it's not green, but it's a nice bright punch of a color.
Absolutely.
So,
And like
yeah.
I said, think about what February is. I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do with each month. We're trying to utilize things that we can harvest that are resonating with the season, but also trying to hit a color that is also going to resonate with that month.
Yeah.
And working really hard at it too.
Hard to
I
see
know
the
that
sparkle. I don't know that.
I'm leaning in like as if I'm
No, like you can like see it. I don't think you're gonna be able to
we're
really
all
see.
like looking.
I don't know.
It's such a hard one to capture. You know,
It's so hard.
oh, I really did just see it. I see it.
I saw it
So
too.
hard. Yeah,
Yep, you can
it's
see
there.
it.
It's there. It's a shimmer. It's subtle.
And the only reason why we always say, or I again also stress a shimmer, is because there are a lot of people that are like, I don't like sparkle. Sparkle for me is when I am taking a nylon strand and it's getting plied, and it's definitely a more brilliant sparkle in the yarn. Our shimmer is an icicle. There's only about 3 to 5% that's blended in prior to spinning. So it is pretty evenly throughout the yarn itself. And it is a clear nylon that is put in. And again, it's only when the light hits it. And that is our flower line. So that's our bellflower, that's our pink clove, that's our hyacinth, that's our bells of Ireland. So it is very subtle, and it really is
And
just,
I feel like this will go, with like your bellflower or your pink clove or
yeah,
you know
be kind of just a
something
little
like that,
addition along with that.
because
So
they're nice and subtle.
now I'm still working to curate, of course, what's going to go with that. That's my part. So I'm not even purposely holding that from you guys. I am wholeheartedly admitting, of course, with the holidays and things like that, but I've got a couple of ideas in mind. Sometimes I try to have it pertain to, the yarn in the season. Sometimes that's not possible. I still, though, just want it to be representative of Long Island and Long Island made in some way. So that's our drop for January. I mean, that's what we wanted to make sure
A
that we.
mini bottle of champagne. Erin's
No, so don't laugh. So actually, we do have, and I know somebody that works for them. We do have a vineyard that is, I want to say, called Sparkling Point, but don't quote me on that. But I actually have a shearing customer that's a manager for it. And that's one of the things that I want to look into, is whether or not they have something small, related to that. But then I don't know if I can ship alcohol. It's a whole thing. I'm like, maybe I'll just send you guys like a little like certificate,
coupon. Yeah.
a coupon if they ship. There's a whole thing with that. So but I do, and there's something else with champagne. So I've got a couple ideas. We just gotta get it going now that the holidays are behind me as well, for sure. So um look, we're at that time. Let me do a couple of things. Now remember, don't drop off, because
Should
actually,
I show should I show what I'm gonna put in your raffle?
oh my God. Well, yeah, this is all business stuff now. So
So,
absolutely. So yeah, so well, first things first, Lisa, why don't you let people know what you have for them? But again, guys,
right.
don't drop off, because remember, Lisa still needs to pick a number. Somebody's still going to get a $20 credit. And while we were at a peak of about 31, 32 tonight, we are down to 25. So your chances are getting good.
So I forgot to activate it. I'll do that as soon as I hang up, but I'm going to use the same code as you for 10% off in my shop.
That'll
So, and
make it
I'm going to
easy.
have that valid through the 7th. So the Sunday at
Okay.
midnight for 11:59. So the weekend past the party.
Okay.
So it'll be the
That's going to be
same
for 10% off, correct?
10% off anything in my shop. Yep.
Okay.
And
And
that'll be
you
good
can go
from
to,
tonight.
if they Google, so it's stopdroppingknit.com.
.com. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's going to be TDOC 23. Make it easy for you guys.
Yeah.
10% off. Now, I will also say, that's one thing I want to add. This is more for the people that have not been participating in our monthly collaboration, Life on Long Island, because one of the other things is, if you get involved in our collaboration, you actually not only get a coupon code from me that's good for the month, but you get a coupon code from Lisa that's good for the month. So there really are lots of other goodies that get thrown in along with just what is seemingly that purchase price. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. But so that's awesome. So thank you. And she's extended her coupon a couple days past mine, in case you want to be a little strategic about where you are supporting people and the raffle basket. And then I don't even know what this is. So what are you going to be
For the
donating?
raffle basket, I'm doing one of my mushroom dyed mini skein sets. It's hard to show the colors here, but this is antique rainbow. And so we've got yarn that has been dyed with Cortinarius semisanguineus mushrooms, Foliota orvella, hydnellum, and then the purple was done with lichen. So it's kind of like a nice pastel
I
mini
was going to
skein
say, it looks
rainbow.
like very earth tone, which is
Yeah, it's
totally
really,
my
really
style.
nice. So this is on my sock base, which is 80% extra fine merino and 20% recycled nylon. And it's a total of 100 grams of yarn.
And the
So it's
value of that?
$50 value.
Amazing. So thank
So
you.
that's going to go in your raffle.
That is just one addition. And so that means when Lisa gets that in my hands, because I'll need that to put it in our basket, I will be handing off to her some more white picket fence and fingering weight to get ready for our February drop, which is
Mhm.
not going to be what you think. So you'll have to hold on and see
Yeah,
what we've got in store for you for that. But thank
yeah.
you so much for that. And
I
then
love the mushrooms. They're my favorite.
no, that is super cool. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And of course,
Yep.
be sure to include anything that you might have, or if you've got a business card or anything like that, that can go along with it. So
Yeah, I'll
people.
stick a tag in there. I don't have cards yet, but
Hey, everyone's got to start somewhere.
yeah.
You've got amazing yarn with amazing dye, so that's all that matters. Now, of course, again, on my end, guys, remember, in order to get that raffle basket, you have to be in the drawing. So for every $10 that you spend with me up until the evening of Friday, the 5th, midnight, for every $10, you get one ticket put in the basket drawing. And then that drawing is going to take place this year live in the after party, of which you don't have to be present for, but you got to play in order to be able to win. So my code TDOC23 gets you 10% off. There are some exclusions. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up outside of this, but I do appreciate you guys playing along. And of course, as I always try to tell you guys, we have more things than just yarn. And also, don't forget, if you need to send a gift to somebody, go on our site. You can actually send the gift through our site. So there's lots of ways in order to get involved with the drawing for the raffle basket without just buying more yarn. I do understand you guys have a lot of yarn. So just giving you alternatives, because every time I give you alternatives, you still come back and buy yarn. So don't blame me. All right. Now, with that, I'm making sure that I've taken care of all of my stuff. So let's see what we've got. So we're still holding, let me close my chat because I want to make sure I can see everybody here. So we've got 25 people on, Lisa. So what she's going to do is pick a number. And then if everybody holds still, that's why I tell everyone, don't move, because if this changes. So pick a number from 1 to 25.
I'm going with Owen's age, and he is 9.
All right. So we're not going to include you or I. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to give it to you. There's not a name though. So we're going to have to go on the honesty. It's just coming up as iPad 52. So I have no idea who that is.
That's Deanna.
That's Deanna. Deanna. We're gonna, Deanna, you're gonna need to work on making sure you've got your name on there. I know sometimes your name is there and sometimes not. Well, Deanna, you are the winner for tonight. And guys, I literally am just running down how you are in the order on my participant list. That was the way we felt that we could do it as the most random, if you will, because of course I do know so many of you and I did not want to be responsible for picking in that way. So Deanna, I'll make a note, but it's also your responsibility for anyone that wins to get in touch with us, and that will be active after the 12 days of Christmas. So guys, with that, for all of you hanging in with us, I mean, this is somebody I even spent a lot of time talking with. So there you go. I still always have a lot to say. Now, tomorrow night, guys, it is Kimberly and I. Many of you have been with us for many a sessions. I can always assure you there is something that her and I have to talk about. Not to mention that we've got sneak peeks about our third knit along, which is going to drop the end of this month at Vogue Knitting Live. And if you're not present for Vogue Knitting Live, it will be also online as well. So lots of stuff in store. Plus, her and I always just have a lot of fun anyway. And of course, we're going to continue to talk about the sheep locks wreath and all of those good things and what she's been doing and personal stuff and whatever else I decide. So if you've got no other plans for Saturday night, do be sure to join us 7 p.m. again. I thank you guys so much. You have no idea how much this energizes me and how much it makes me smile. So drop us DMs, like we said. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know how you're enjoying everything. And we appreciate all of you so much. So
Thank you so much for having me, Tabitha.
oh my God, thank you so much for doing this. I'm just like, I feel like I talk to you all the time. So, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in last minute. I'm glad I could get you back in rotation, and I'm excited about our job.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. See you soon.